Welcome. In this video, we're going to answer a deceptively simple question: what exactly is an asset? Whether you work in maintenance, operations, finance, or engineering, understanding what an asset is, why it matters, and how to manage it effectively is fundamental to how organizations succeed. Let's get started. So what is an asset? At its core, an asset is any item of value to an organization that performs a specific function, enabling the organization to deliver its services or meet its objectives. Assets come in two broad categories. Physical assets are the tangible things you can see and touch: machinery and equipment, buildings and infrastructure, vehicles and rolling stock, and utility networks like pipelines. But assets don't have to be physical. Non-physical assets include software and IT systems, data and intellectual property, licenses and contracts, and even an organization's brand and reputation. The common thread? Every asset contributes value and serves a purpose. Assets aren't just items on a list, they are the backbone of how an organization functions. First, assets deliver services. A hospital's MRI machine, a railway's signaling system, a factory's production line. Without these assets, the organization simply cannot do its job. Second, assets drive revenue. A manufacturing plant produces goods for sale, a commercial vehicle fleet delivers paid logistics, a commercial property earns rental income. Assets are economic engines. Third, assets represent value on the balance sheet. How well your assets are maintained and how long they last directly affects your organization's financial health and how investors and stakeholders perceive you. In short, assets are not just tools. They are strategic resources. Let's make this concrete with some real-world examples across different industries. In the rail sector, a signaling system is a critical asset. Its function is to control train movements safely and ensure punctuality across the network. In manufacturing, a CNC machining center is a high-value asset that cuts metal components to precise tolerances, the heart of a production facility. In utilities, a transformer substation steps down high-voltage electricity into safe, usable power for distribution. You don't see it, but it keeps the lights on. And in facilities management, an HVAC system controls temperature and air quality in commercial buildings, directly affecting occupant comfort and productivity. Different sectors, different assets, but all sharing that same core characteristic: they perform a function that the organization depends on. Every asset has a life cycle, from the moment it is acquired to the moment it is disposed of. The life cycle moves through 4 stages. First, acquire: the organization purchases or builds the asset. Second, operate: the asset is put to work delivering value. Third, maintain: ongoing servicing keeps the asset functional and safe. And fourth, renew or dispose: the organization either extends the asset's life through refurbishment, or decommissions it. Here's the key principle: it is in the organization's interest to prolong the life of an asset, but only while it remains within its financial target. For example, imagine a printing press that costs $80,000 a year to maintain but only generates $50,000 in output. That asset is no longer financially justified. It should be refurbished, replaced, or decommissioned. An asset that costs more than it contributes is a liability, not an asset. So what does it actually cost to keep an asset? The cost of maintaining an asset is typically made up of 3 components. The first is labor cost. This is the wages for the technicians, engineers, and operators who inspect, service, and repair the asset. For example, maintaining a fleet of escalators might require 3 engineers on rotation. Their salaries, overtime, and call-out fees all contribute. The second is spare parts cost. This covers the procurement and storage of components needed to keep the asset running. Replacing worn bearings, seals, and circuit boards on an industrial pump, for instance, can cost thousands per service visit. The third, and often the most significant, is the cost of failure. This is the indirect cost when an asset breaks down unexpectedly. Consider this: a single critical rail signaling failure that delays 40 trains affects 25,000 passengers. The resulting revenue loss, regulatory penalties, and reputational damage can run into millions. Understanding all 3 costs is essential for making good asset management decisions. Every asset must continually pass a value test. The question an organization must ask is: does the cost of keeping this asset justify the value it provides? If the answer is yes, keep and maintain it. For example, a rail bridge that costs $200,000 per year to maintain, but saves $5 million in alternative routing costs, is absolutely worth keeping. The numbers clearly support it. But if the cost exceeds the value, it's time to replace or decommission. Consider an aging locomotive requiring $900,000 a year in repairs but generating only $400,000 in revenue. Replacement is not just sensible, it's financially necessary. The formula that captures this is called total cost of ownership, labor costs, plus spare parts, plus failure costs, plus the opportunity cost of downtime. When that total exceeds what the asset contributes, the decision becomes clear. Let's bring everything together with a real-world case study, a railway signaling system controlling 50 kilometers of track. The asset's function is critical, it ensures trains move safely and on schedule. Without it, the entire network stops. The annual labor cost for 3 signal engineers on 24/7 rotation is around $350,000. Spare parts, relays, cable harnesses, track circuits, add another $120,000. Together, the total managed maintenance cost is $470,000 per year. Now compare that to the cost of inaction. Without proper maintenance, major failures can be expected around 3 times per year. Each failure, a 6-hour network shutdown with 200 trains cancelled, passenger compensation, and regulatory fines, costs an estimated $1.5 million per event. That's $4.5 million per year. The lesson is stark. Proactive maintenance at $470,000 prevents reactive costs of $4.5 million. That's a return of nearly 10 to 1. Well-maintained assets don't just save money, they protect the organization's reputation and ability to operate. Let's close with the 5 things to remember from this video. 1. An asset is any item of value that performs a function for the organization. 2. The goal is to prolong asset life, but only while keeping it within financial targets. 3. The cost of keeping an asset is made up of labor, spare parts, and failure costs. 4. When the total cost exceeds the value delivered, the asset should be replaced or retired. And 5. Proactive maintenance is almost always cheaper than reacting to failures after they occur. Thank you for watching. If you found this useful, the next video in this series will explore how we measure asset condition and prioritize maintenance decisions.